not just the way they dress and food preferences and things like that, but political beliefs, their economic and social attitudes, their religious faith, the very, very parallel. These are lines of evidence showing that that we created God and religions, not vice versa. And then, of course, culturally, socially, historically, geographically, you can show in a very positive way, amounting lots of evidence against the God hypothesis, that the number one predictor of what your religious faith is where you happen to have been born. If you happen to have been born in India in the 20th century, you're likely to be Hindu. If you're born in America, you're likely to be Christian. Of course, there's exceptions, but statistically, that's the way it goes. So that alone tells us, not to mention all the common elements of all the different pre-Christian religions that had virgin birth elements to their story, resurrection elements, and so forth, raising the dead, performing miracles. These are all quite common. So I document all those and show that it would be very unlikely. I would be shocked if it turned out there was a God. However, just in case, I have a little statement that I'm prepared to read. Because you never know. So this is what I would say to God, should it turn out that I'm wrong. Anyway, so Lord, I did the best I could with the tools you granted me. You gave me a brain to think skeptically, and I used it accordingly. You gave me the capacity to reason, and I applied it to all claims, including that of your own existence. You gave me a moral sense, and I felt the pangs of guilt and the joys of pride for the bad and good things I chose to do. I tried to do unto others as I would have them do unto me, and although I fell far short of the ideal far too many times, I tried to apply your fundamental principle whenever I could. Whatever the nature of your immortal and infinite spiritual essence actually is, as a mortal, finite, corporeal being, I cannot possibly fathom it, despite my best efforts, and so do with me whatever you will. And I mean it. And then the last third of the book, I talk about political and ideological beliefs, because those are beliefs too, that are dependent upon all sorts of subjective emotional components. So I won't get into all that because I've spoken here about that before. Conspiracy theories I find really interesting and a little tricky because unlike, say, the paranormal or the supernatural, conspiracies do happen. Lincoln was assassinated by a conspiracy. Franz Ferdinand was assassinated by Serbian nationalists, the Black Hand, who triggered the start of World War I. Watergate was a conspiracy. There's lots of conspiracies. The problem is we tend to be a little too susceptible, we people in general, about believing anything you hear, therefore every conspiracy seems to be true. Like Jesse Ventura's love of anything he's ever heard must be a true conspiracy. And so when I debated him on this, he was on about 9/11 truthism and how how do you explain the buildings fell, all these arguments, fell in their footprint in Building 7, and he was on about the Pentagon being hit by a missile, so I asked him a simple question, Jesse, where's the plane? If the missile hit the building and not a plane, where's the plane? Because it's gone. And like Deepak, never fails to have an answer. Oh, they flew it to Canada and whisked the subjects off, the customers off, and so on. Anyway, so but if everything's a conspiracy, then nothing's a conspiracy. We have to have some way to discriminate between truth. So I have a little conspiracy detector kit in the book. Here's like the 10 things you know that make it unlikely that a conspiracy would be true. Like if it involves world domination, it's probably not true. Conspiracies tend to be very narrowly focused and so on. Although I have to say I had a recent scare about that, watching that movie, Too Big to Fail, on HBO, based on the best-selling book, Too Big to Fail, about the financial crisis. And there's that scene in the movie that's also depicted in the book quite powerfully in September of 2008, where Paulson and Bernanke call in the top 10 CEOs of all the major banks, Bank of America and Citibank and Countrywide and so on, and brings them all in a room and says, all right, guys, we control like 70% of the world's finances, and if we don't do something this weekend, we're not going to have an economy on Monday. And I thought, holy crap, it's 12 guys in a room running the world. Like I said, can't happen. So I have to say some of my libertarian propensities are a little bit challenged about concerns for those kinds of non-transparent power sources. Do make me kind of nervous. in this case, the corporate financial world. Government has the same problem too. So anytime you have those kinds of big forces, that does make me think maybe some conspiracies at least have some element of truth. So we have to keep an open mind about that and always test those. So I'm going to finish up here and just read the last 2 paragraphs of the book about why science is our best hope for getting around this trap of belief-dependent realism. So we now come to the end of this narrative journey of belief, but it is really just the beginning of a new understanding of how the brain generates beliefs and reinforces them as truths. Of the many mysteries we have uncovered and questions we have tried to answer, one in particular stands out. Homo rationalis, that species of human who carefully weighs all decisions through cold, hard logic and rational analysis of the data, is not only extinct, but probably never existed. Mr. Spock is science fiction. And it's a good thing, because people who have suffered brain damage to the emotional networks of their brains, particularly their limbic systems, find it nearly impossible to make even the simplest of decisions about the most mundane choices in life. Which toothpaste to buy, for example, with so many brands and sizes and qualities and prices to consider. Reason alone will leave you standing there in the store aisle, frozen in indecision, analysis paralysis. An emotional leap of faith beyond reason is often required just to get through the day, let alone make the big decisions in life. In the end, all of us are trying to make sense of the world, and nature has gifted us with a double-edged sword that cuts for and against. On one edge, our brains are the most complex and sophisticated information processing machines in the universe, capable of understanding not only the universe itself, but the process of understanding. On the other edge, by the very same process of forming beliefs about the universe and ourselves, we are also more capable than any other species of self-deception and illusion, of fooling ourselves even when we are trying to avoid being fooled by nature. In the end, I want to believe, but I also want to know. The truth is out there, and although it may be difficult to find, science is the best tool we have for uncovering it. Thank you. Thank you.
Michael Shermer, ladies and gentlemen.